Good evening. The time is now 6:33, and we will now reconvene into open session. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I will now entertain a motion for interdistrict transfers 1 through 6.
I move we accept interdistrict transfer 1 through 6.
All in favor? Aye. Aye. And out of closed session, the board has voted to deny the liability claim. Yes, the liability claim. 3-0. And I will now entertain a motion to approve the stipulated. Oh, we voted in, okay. Okay, rewind. Okay, I will now entertain a motion for the liability claim.
I move we deny liability claim.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye. Okay, now we will go ahead and move on to our stipulated expulsion. I will now entertain a motion to approve the stipulated suspended expulsion for student 165905.
I move we accept stipulated suspended expulsion for student 165905.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Okay, that is all from our closed session. We will now go ahead and move on to our presentation from CPMS.
I don't think I can take it off. Good evening. Thank you for having us tonight. I'm super excited to present to you our drama group that is here to perform for us. We have Ms. Foraker and Ms. Solis here that is going to officially introduce it, and I'm going to try to bottle up some of this energy for later.
So thank you for having us today. Through a series of unfortunate events, this group of children only first heard this song yesterday. So when you look at what they have done with it and how amazing it is, you are going to know about all of the talent that we have, or not all of it, but all of our talent here today. So kids, can you please take your spots? Go ahead, get in your spots. hope you all come and join us for the show in March. Thank you, guys. You're done. You did great. I'm proud of you.
Thank you for coming out and spending the evening with us. And
Let's get out of their hair and go outside so we don't make a bunch of noise.
that was a great performance, by the way.
Thank you all for coming tonight.
No, it's okay at this point. Yeah. Oh, yeah, what are the dates for the show?
So it's the weekend before, the 2 weekends before we go to spring break. So it's like the 14th and 15th and then the weekend after that. We do Friday, Saturday, and a Sunday matinee, and then a Friday and a Saturday.
Okay. Friday,
So
Saturday.
that would be March before spring break? So it'd be March 7, 8, 9, and then March 15, 16. Does that sound right?
15, 16 is the first one.
Okay, so March 15, 16, followed by 22nd, 23rd. Okay.
Sounds good. Thank you, and let your students know that we appreciate them coming out and spending the evening with us and sharing.
I will. And they were nervous as all get out, so they're just loving it.
Yeah, they sure did. I mean, I'm just gonna make a comment. I think it's great that, we're seeing this, especially from the middle school. It's a long way. We've come a long way in King City, so that's awesome. Okay, we will now go ahead and move on to public comment. This is an opportunity for members of the audience to speak on something that is not on tonight's agenda. I do have a public comment submitted. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak on something that is not on tonight's agenda? Okay, Tina Sanchez.
Good afternoon, everybody. I am a parent at Delray Elementary, and I'm here to ask the board and the district to look into long-term solutions regarding traffic and parking at Delray Elementary. I am aware of the current efforts and collaboration with King City Police Department regarding this concern, and I'm here to ask you take it a step further and look into utilizing the dirt lot in between the school and the church in a more efficient and safe manner. From what I understand, the dirt parking lot is owned by the church, and they have allowed us parents to use it throughout the years. But before that happened, the lot was closed off to parents, so parents would jump the curb just to park there. In the interest of safety, the district, the city, the church worked together to make an opening in the sidewalk to allow parents to access the lot with their vehicles safely. However, the lot has not been maintained and throughout the years has suffered significant puddling and potholes after the rainy season. I understand that it doesn't make sense financially for the church to pay to upkeep that lot when it's the school and the parents who utilize it. But in its current condition, it poses a hazard to both pedestrians and vehicles. I'm not suggesting it be closed off, but that the district, church, and the city work together once again to come up with a sustainable and safe solution. This can mean leveling out the dirt, filling the holes, and placing temporary gravel on it. Also exploring the possibility of asphalt or even purchasing the land for school use. The lot is already insured by either the district or the school. Fixing the dirt lot with designated parking spaces would help maximize its parking potential and is a safe parking solution that will also alleviate the traffic congestion around drop-off and pickup times. It will encourage parents to park there without worrying about damaging their vehicles. It will reduce the incidents where students improperly cross the street, reduce unsafe street drop-offs, reduce or eliminate parking in red zones, which are all issues we still continue to see despite more police presence. Now, many will say, we'll leave earlier to find close parking. However, this logic doesn't apply because we are at or above parking capacity. If we were all to leave early, it'd be the same issue, but earlier. So again, please look into that dirt parking lot and explore long-term solutions because the current parking situation not only affects parents, it also affects students, staff, and the community as a whole. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience wishing to speak on something that is not on tonight's agenda? Okay, having no further public comment, we'll go ahead and close public comment and we'll move on to the superintendent's report.
Hey, good evening and happy new calendar year, as we say when we're in the schools. So first of all, January is School Board Recognition Month. So I want to thank all of you for serving on our school board. Some of you for many years, some of you for just joining us, but we really do appreciate the dedication of time that you give to our district. It's a very important task, so thank you. Not just this month, but every month, but this is the month that you're certainly singled out and recognized for your service. So since we met last, we obviously have had winter break, and it was 3 weeks of a break for the majority of our staff, and I think they appreciated the time and our students as well. But we also have our 12-month staff that keep things running, often behind the scenes, and especially during breaks. So we also appreciate and recognize the dedication and the time that they put into our district. And yes, they do still get vacations, and often at other times in the year, but I think we can all appreciate how you can feel when everyone around you is off on break and you're still reporting to work every day with a smile on your face. So we appreciate our 12-month staff. We had a professional development day on Friday, January 10th. Unfortunately, our presenter that we had lined up for the morning was she lives down in Southern California, so she was evacuated at the very last minute overnight and was unable to join us. But Dr. Rios and Audrey Lee with the Scholar System, they were here for the afternoon. So we had a very good session in the afternoon, a little over 50 of our staff members. That was an optional day, so we had a little over 50 that attended. And it was very well received. It was focused on, while having compassion and understanding for your students, still having high expectations for your students. Then on Monday, we had our safety, situational awareness, and active threat response training with Kimball and Associates. It was held at each site individually. And at the end of in the afternoon, all the sites came back and district office staff convened here in this room. And we thought about everything that we'd learned in the morning and generated lots of next steps, questions, things to do, et cetera, in relation to what we've learned regarding safety in the morning. So Joni and I have several pages of feedback from throughout the district that we'll be going through and looking at what are some things that we can do immediately that we've learned, what are some things that might take a little longer, what are some things that perhaps are not feasible in our situation, but how can we still respond to the feedback that we received. It was an optional day for our 12-month CSEA staff. We did have many that attended, not all, but we did have a significant number of our non-12-month CSEA staff that came on that day. Since we returned, our site administrators and Dr. Ruby have been holding many meetings throughout the district in preparation for the application for the Community Schools Grant. So they all jumped right in and have been forming committees and holding those meetings and offering that input, all information that our grant writer will need so that she can submit that grant. It's due in early February, so it was a very quick turnaround here after winter break. And then, Dr. Ruby, we hear towards the end of the school year, correct, is when we would hear if we received the grant? Okay, perfect. So before we go off on summer break, we should know. It could be that we aren't, everything from every site receives funding to no site or anything in between. We really have no way of knowing. But given our community and the things that we are already doing, as well as the things that we want to be able to do, we do have a strong application. At CPMS last week, the staff implemented the Yonder pouches, and they had parent meetings leading up to it. They'd had parent meetings. Ms. Reed and her staff held parent meetings before winter break. She made some videos for students that they watched as well. And then when they came back, a couple more meetings were held for anyone that still had questions. Assemblies were held for each grade level individually. And then on Thursday morning during first period, they distributed all the pouches. There had been very specific guidelines given both to staff and students about the what, the why, the how, et cetera. I unfortunately was at the county office, so I couldn't be on site that day. So the next morning, I went to CPMS at arrival time because I wanted to see. I thought, okay, this is really the first morning. It was so smooth. They had it just dialed in. You know, everything, of course, there's going to be a hiccup here or there, but the pace of the students coming in the gates that very first morning into class, it's not a large number of students that have tried to go around the system, but those that have, and when they're caught, their phones are confiscated. It's a policy we've had, this is nothing new, it's just being enforced. But the other thing, and I was sharing with Mrs. Reed, that really stuck out to me on that Friday was this was never intended to be like a consequence or a punishment. We're bringing these in because we want the students to be able to focus on their learning and to talk to each other, not be distracted. There were all positive outcomes that we were wanting from this. And so as the students are arriving on campus, they are being greeted just as they would be, as they were prior to Thursday. They're being, yes, they're being told, okay, where's your pouch? Put your phone in the pouch. But when a student looks up and says, I don't have a phone, they're not being questioned and quizzed right there in the moment. They still have that trust from the staff that they're being honest and truthful. Because again, if they aren't, it's going to be figured out. They're going to ultimately, if you choose not to abide by the rules, the consequence will be there. So there's no need to call out students in this public forum as they're arriving on campus, and we want them to have a good day. They're being welcomed just like any other day. They're assumed they're going to follow the rules, and well over 90%, well over 99% out of 900 students, what have you confiscated? Less than 10? Less than 5 potentially? Maybe by today, we're up to 5. Okay, so again, not naive enough to think that there aren't potentially some students that are a little sly at the moment, but the staff is being very consistent on the implementation. So it's been a very positive. And the phones that they've confiscated, it's a parent that must come pick it up, not an older sibling, not a cousin. It must be a parent. And when the parents have come, the parents have been very supportive of the administrative staff. We knew the rules, they know the rules. Yes, this is what will happen. So kudos to them for definitely thinking through all of that rollout and everything they've done to make it so smooth. The other thing that I wanted to point out is you may have seen on Friday, as a district, we did push a Parent Square message out to all of our parents regarding the concerns around immigration enforcement. I think all of us are fully aware there's lots of information coming out every day around this issue. The county is working on organizing a meeting labeled Know Your Rights. That's another phrase that many of us have heard over the last month or so. And when they hold that meeting in coordination with County Office of Education and different entities, it will be available in person, but it's also going to be a virtual meeting so that whether it's parents that don't want to go to the meeting in person or don't have the ability to, they can still join in virtually. So we will be sharing that information once we have the date. Our city is also looking at whether or not they can pull together a similar meeting, and we would certainly help with the city in sharing that information with our parents and being a good partner in wanting to get that information out. I do feel that as a district, we are not the attorneys, and I wouldn't want our staff to inadvertently answer a question wrong when our specialty is education. Our specialty is not the legal aspect. So we want our parents to know that our purpose is to provide a safe learning environment for their children and provide all the information that they may need, but we are not your authority when it comes to legal matters. So we will partner with those that are and provide information, but we would not be doing that directly. Also on that front, we will have available at the sites information's coming out. There are one-page flyers for parents that are about Know Your Rights, and then of course there are the red cards you've heard about. So we are working on having all those things available for our families at the sites because again, we want them to know they're supported. Yesterday, Joni and Betty and I went to the governor's budget workshop in Sacramento. So Joni, is there anything you'd like to share in regards to that?
There is, thank you. Actually, I was just thinking, it was just yesterday. It seems like it was longer ago. We've had such a long and full day today. So essentially my takeaways from the meeting yesterday were that we need to be cautiously optimistic for the future, the next 3 or 4 years with the state fiscal health. Essentially what it's looking like, we've got some stability coming up that last year we would have not thought that we had that ahead of us, right? Because we were talking about deferrals and stuff last year as they were pushing off the date that our taxes and stuff were due. That really impacted our revenue at the state level and then the revenue that was pushed out to school districts as well. Because of that, or in light of that, I should say, school districts' revenue is primarily based upon Proposition 98. And I don't know how familiar everybody is with Proposition 98, but essentially it's a minimum guarantee that school districts get a certain percentage of the state's budget. And that just ensures that districts are taken care of so that we can support our students, right, on an annual basis. So for this fiscal year, it's looking like our minimum guarantee is set to be $119 billion statewide, right, for education. And that is still a projection because they don't certify that number until like the end of the year after all of the state revenues have come in. Then they look back and they certify what was owed to schools. And at that point in time, they kind of true up. So if they overpaid us, then they say, well, okay, well, now you have to send some money back. But if they underpaid us, then they give us the difference of that. So in the governor's budget, he's proposing that he underfund Prop 98. So it's looking like it's projected to be $119 billion, but he's projecting to fund it at $117 billion. To be cautious and to not overestimate the state revenues and not put the state in a position that we have to take a bunch of money back from schools, right? So the roughly $1.6 billion, that's the difference of what our guarantee would be and what he's saying that we should fund it. They are extending when the taxes are due, essentially for Los Angeles County, and a lot of that is due to the fires that they're experiencing now. The people who live in Los Angeles and the corporations that are there, they actually take up like 25% of the state's budget. And so if he were to try to, solidify that $119 billion now, that could be a large difference from when those families and those corporations file their taxes. I'm not sure how long they're extending their due date to, but they are not going to be due at the same time as everybody else due to the fires. And there's question on whether that's constitutional or not, because it's in our state constitution that schools get that minimum guarantee. So there's this question of, if he's actually allowed to do that, but that's where we're at currently. So that puts us at, we're looking at our COLA for this year is going to be 2.43%, which is essentially what we had been looking at all year last year for our current year. The cautiously optimistic side is that although it's wonderful to get a 2.43% COLA for schools, we have to always consider that the rate of our outflow is exceeding 2.43%. So we've got rising costs in health and welfare. We've got just the inflation for our operational costs. We've got rising costs of special ed. And we have one more, our increased cost of retirement benefits for our retirees. And so all of those things and taking into consideration with the stability of our state revenues that we're looking at, we need to be cautious about how much we are setting aside for our future planning so that we can make sure that we're, as a district, fiscally stable over the next 3 years as well. So I'll summarize. Cautiously optimistic. Those are that's the words that we're going to be going with for a little while.
Thank you. Before I finish up, I did want to go back to on the immigration piece. I forgot to mention the messaging that I'm also giving out to site administration is the reminder that how would you forget the current situation? If someone walked onto your campus and wanted access to your campus or access to student information, how would you respond? Those rules have not changed in who can access our campuses and who can have access to student information. Those are still the same. If someone had previously presented you with what appears to be a legal piece of paper saying that they have a right to have access information, what would you have done? You still do the same thing, which is you reach out to the district office for direction on, here's what I've been given. Is this legitimate? What do I do next? That has not changed. So we're reinforcing and sending out to our sites that information. At our county SUPS meeting last week, session presented by the attorneys, they reviewed a lot of this, and the simple answer to us as superintendents was, if you're presented with a piece of paper that seems very official, that's directing you to do something, get on the phone with your attorney, just as you would have any other time, share the information with them so that your attorney can give you the legal advice and the legal direction on how to respond. So again, we're here focusing on a safe and welcoming environment for our students. That's what we've always been about, and that's what we continue to be about. You have some upcoming events. That's been shared with you. It's on the back table for others as well. Tomorrow, we kick off with Farm Day. If you have time tomorrow morning, if you've never experienced Farm Day, wander down to the fairgrounds roughly between 9 and 11, and you'll catch third graders from Gonzales South. I'm not sure if Chular comes south or goes north for theirs, but third graders all throughout South County will be here for Farm Day. It's quite the experience. And then there are many other events, as always. If there's something you are planning on going to, reach out to the site, or if it's a district level, reach out to us to make sure the time or the location has not changed, because things are always subject to change. And then my final closing comment is just a reminder that we're always looking for more people to serve on our Citizen Bond Oversight Committee. The information's on the website. So while none of us can serve on that committee, please feel free to share that information and direct people to the website. So, thank you.
Any questions or comments? Okay. Moving on to reports from administrators. Is there any questions or comments for any of the reports submitted?
I have a quick question, just to follow up from our last report on Mr. Daniels. I know that you opened up 2 SDC classes in San Lucia. Are those teachers finally here, or, because I saw that there was a long-term sub in one of them? So we're pretty much hoping March, possibly end the year with our long-term? And for when we have like these long-term subs, do we have one of our special education teachers overseeing these cases and following through with our IEP? Sounds good, thank you.
Ms. Ruby, just real quick clarification. So the planning with Consuelo, is that what we have on here in regards to February 12th and 13th, the mini FLI? That's the one, okay. And then, Ms. Reed, just out of curiosity, I know that you just implemented it on the 16th, but so far no issues in regards to property damage or writing or things like that in regards to any of these devices that have been.
Our biggest issue today was someone dropped their
Any other questions or comments? Okay. We'll now go ahead and move on to the consent agenda. Oh, yeah. Any? Any other questions or comments? Okay. We will now go ahead and move on to the consent agenda. Board members, is there anything that you would like to have pulled and voted on separately? Is there any questions or comments from the audience regarding our consent agenda? Okay, having no input, I'll now entertain a motion for the consent agenda.
I make a motion, we accept tonight's consent agenda as presented.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Moving on to action items. Our first action item is approval of E-rate contract with IT Management Company. Sean?
I just want to point out, I love coming up here this time of year because that means I'm almost done with this stuff. So the first one up for you tonight is the contract or RFQ for IT Management Corporation. This is part of the E-rate bid we put out for the replacement and expansion of the Wi-Fi, including the new TK buildings going in at Arts Magnet and then the future ones going to Santa Lucia. On your documentation, you can see the whole bidding process, the matrix and everything that went through to it. Total cost that came out after all the discount was $81,653, which approximately is 65% discount from what was projected when we went over this. I think it was November. Now for this one, legally you have to, if you don't have to approve it, I mean, you can choose to say no, but legally, if you decide to choose it, you must approve the full amount. That's not what we're going to pay though. We will end up paying the $12,249, which is the post E-rate discount amount. Any questions?
No? Any questions from the audience? Okay, I'll now entertain a motion for action item A.
I move we approve action item A, approval of E-rate contract with IT Management Company.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Okay, action item B, approval of the E-rate contract with CWG.
So same thing, but this is the second bid that we put out for the expansion of the network, specifically for Arts Magnet and Santa Lucia, and then a few other areas that we're looking at expanding the network in. Again, came back at about $127,330. That's about a 12% discount, so not as big of a discount, but that's not really a big surprise, given that it was for network switches. Again, if you approve, you have to approve for the full amount, but once you receive the 85% discount, the 15% that we will owe will be $19,100.
Any questions or comments from the board or the audience? Having none, I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion, we approve action item B, approval of E-rate contract with CWG.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Yay, thank you.
Thank you, Sean. We'll now go ahead and move on to action item C, acceptance of the 2023-24 audit report. Joni?
I told you, you guys were in for a treat. I don't know if you had a chance to review the audit report, but it was the best one I've ever seen in my career. As I stated before, I'm very proud of our fiscal services department for taking this on and having absolutely no findings whatsoever. As the auditor stated, there were no significant concerns, weaknesses, or with the internal controls or audit findings to be noted, and all prior years' audit findings and misstatements had been corrected appropriately. Additionally, the results of the auditor test disclose no instances of non-compliance with any state or federal program, and I just think that's amazing. And I like to give kudos to all those people who are involved in the work behind this audit.
Any questions or comments from the board or the audience?
Pretty much just echoing that, congratulating our fiscal services department that you guys rocked it and your hard work is shown. So thank you guys.
Kudos. Free coffee and donuts from Joni.
And again, thank you for all your hard work and your dedication. I know that it takes a lot out of you guys, and you guys spend numerous hours after hours. So thank you for being that dedicated. And thanks to your families for being so understanding. Okay, we will now go ahead and move on to action. Oh, actually, no, we gotta go back to the vote. I will now entertain a motion for action item C.
I move we approve action item C, acceptance of the 2023-2024 audit report.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Now we'll go ahead and move on to action item D, approval of the selection of MCSBA top 3 nominees for the 2024 Excellence in Education Award.
Okay, so this is annual activity that you guys join in with the Monterey County School Boards Association. So attached there through the link, you saw this previously, so here it is now. You need to select your top 3 that you want to send to the county office for to be recognized for this year for excellence in education.
Board members, do you have any suggestions?
I would like to suggest our program that we currently use, which is the First Tee of Monterey County, as well as Soul Treasures.
So having been on the executive council in the past and going through this process at that level, I know it's something that they hold to heart, that serves the majority of Monterey County, which is a hit and miss because it either is going to serve mostly South County, like for example, Soul Treasures, or it's going to be away from South County and serve like the Peninsula or North County. Looking over this though, however, and another thing is that a lot of these programs have already won a few times, and so just going back on what I recall is they like to have a little bit of new things presented, and I personally saw equine here. I don't believe that they've ever been I don't know that they've ever received or been a recipient of the award, but I know what equine has done as far as mental health and or behavioral health for various age groups throughout the county. So I think it'd be interesting for maybe that one. And then also the Monterey County Rape Crisis Center. I don't think I've ever seen that one also on here. And just the awareness that they bring, the education and the resources that they also bring throughout the county. And I mean, those are just things that I'm putting out there, but I'm just putting them out there. So any other input from the board?
So the 3 I had were Monterey County Rape Crisis, the Equine Healing, and Guitars Not Guns. I know they haven't really come down here so much, but they have come down to Greenfield. So hopefully we're already gonna start the ball rolling here.
We received a
did?
significant donation from Goodars, 31.
Ooh, we got bases too this year. Yeah, so those are my 3 rape prices: Guitars Not Guns and Equine Healing.
You need my third one. Wendy?
I was thinking equine, and then I was thinking also Soul Treasures.
All right, so Jennifer, what do we do here? Kidding.
Who wrote down all the answers now? I got it. Okay.
Okay, so 3 of you have picked equine.
Well, we can go with that one on my part as well.
Soul Treasures at 2. Monterey County Rape Crisis at 2.
That was my third one that I told her she got from me. So I guess we have the same three. She copied me. You sat next to me for a reason.
We can go with the guitar on my part.
I'll go with the Monterey. Your first choice would be Any Point, second choice is Guitars Not Done, third choice is Monterey County.
I'll now entertain a motion to submit recommendations for equine therapy, for Guitars Not Guns, and for the Monterey Rape Crisis Center.
I make a motion, we select Equine, Guitars Not Guns, and the Monterey County Rape Crisis for our top 3 nominees for the 2024 Excellence in Education Award.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Okay, we will now move on into our information item. Item A, Safe Routes to School presentation.
Right, so this evening, we have a presenter here with us, Amelia, correct? Yes, Amelia Conlon with TAMC. And you've probably heard Safe Routes to School. It's something that we've been involved in for many years in King City in different capacities. And there's also many things going on right now in South County related to Safe Routes to School. So Amelia's here to share with us a specific component that in the end has recommendations that came out of a community group. And she will share what their recommendations are, what's been done, and then what this plan can be used for. So thank you so much, Amelia, for being here. You have both the PowerPoint attached for you as well as the complete plan.
I'm a senior planner with the Transportation Agency for Monterey County, and I'm here to present to you tonight on the final Salinas Valley Safe Routes to Schools plan. Next slide, please. So this is a plan that's meant to improve safety for people walking and biking to 22 K through 12 public schools in Gonzales, Soledad, Greenfield, and King City. The plan has been a partnership between the Transportation Agency, the Monterey County Health Department, Ecology Action, the 4 South County cities, and the 5 school districts. And it was funded through a grant from Caltrans, as well as local Measure X matching funds. This has been a 3-year planning process. We kicked it off at the beginning of 2022 and just wrapped up the final plan at the end of 2024. And the Transportation Agency has set a goal that all schools in Monterey County be covered by a Safe Routes to Schools plan. But for this plan, we added a new component, which was steering committees established in each of the 4 cities. And those steering committees led a participatory budgeting process, so met for a period of 8 months, and designed an election process where everyone in the community could vote on the highest priority projects. And the goal there was to see some more immediate improvements. Typically, we'll go through this multi-year planning process, and then it can take 5 years for the city to get a grant or TAMC to get a grant and for us to actually build some projects. And so the goal here was to get projects on the ground more quickly, and TAMC contributed $250,000 per city to build some of those high priority projects. Next slide. So this is a photo of the King City Steering Committee. These folks volunteered their time for many months to plan the election, help do outreach for the election, and eventually present the election results to City Council and the Board of Supervisors. Next slide. So the big goal of this plan is to develop recommendations, eventually implement recommendations to make it easier and safer for students and families to walk and bike to school. And our goal there is to For one, if we can encourage more walking and biking, we can help reduce the congestion that we see around every school in Monterey County, not just in the Salinas Valley. And we can also build a little bit more exercise into the daily routine of students and families, help improve student health. And another big goal here is to help make the city and TAMC more competitive for grant funding. So if you've gone through this type of planning process, if you ask the community what their priorities are, it really helps make you more competitive when you're applying for state and federal funds. And King City actually received a multi-million-dollar grant through the Active Transportation Program from the state for Safe Routes to Schools improvements on Broadway and Mildred. So that's exactly the goal here with this type of planning process. Next slide. So we kicked off this plan in fall of 2022 with parent outreach. We sent out parent surveys and offered presentations at parent meetings at all of the school sites to ask parents about their safety concerns as their student was traveling to school. And we followed that up with walking audits at each of the school sites. So met with city staff, school staff, to observe the morning drop-off and afternoon pickup and see for ourselves what some of the safety issues were around each of the school sites. And then we turned that list of issues into recommendations for infrastructure improvements, things like new crosswalks, curb extensions, bike facilities in some cases, as well as program recommendations for things like changes to the drop-off process or encouragement events to encourage more walking and biking. The King City Steering Committee met between 2023 and 2024. That was a 9-month process. And we also held a pilot project in spring of 2024. And this was on Collins Street. So we made some temporary changes for a month, painted some crosswalks, and put in a temporary drop-off lane in front of Santa Lucia as a way to test out some changes and get feedback from the community. And I have a little more information on that later in the presentation. And then we wrapped up the draft and final plan at the end of 2024. Next slide. So here is a summary of all the outreach that took place in King City. We gave 11 presentations at parent meetings, both to introduce the project and get feedback, and then to share the draft recommendations and get feedback. We received 358 responses to the parent survey, and we received 754 community votes during the participatory budgeting process, which was the top vote getter of any Salinas Valley city. So you guys did a great job. Next slide. And here's some of the public survey data from the Collins Street pilot project. And we really heard a positive response to this project. We received 65 responses, so not a huge response rate, but of those respondents, more than 75% had a positive experience with the pilot project, and nearly 80% said that they would like to see the temporary changes be made permanent. And one of the features of the pilot was the temporary drop-off lane in front of Santa Lucia, and I would really encourage the school and the district to follow up with the city if that's something that you do want to pursue as a permanent project, and to keep that conversation going with them. Next slide. So the plan includes high-level goals for the future of Safe Routes to Schools, walking and biking in the Salinas Valley. It includes corridor recommendations for city streets for things like sidewalks, traffic calming, and bicycle facilities. And most of the recommendations in this plan are for city streets. This is primarily a city plan, with some of the recommendations being for school campuses or for program and policy recommendations that the district could initiate in the future. Next slide. So we do have some ideas for school sites in the plan. This is not a mandate by any means. These are ideas for the district to consider in the future, for your facilities staff and for your principals to consider as you're thinking about improving safety around schools going forward. So one recommendation for the school sites was to think about crossing guard training throughout the district so that everyone knows the rules of the road and is working efficiently to both allow traffic to move through and to make sure that people are able to cross safely. And we also have recommendations for several of the campuses I will say the middle school had a very smooth drop-off process, so really no recommendations there. But for the elementary school campuses, there are recommendations to explore changes to the drop-off processes. And we really saw the drop-off lane at the Arts Magnet School working well during the audit. And so that was in part what led to the Collins Street pilot project to explore something similar for Santa Lucia. And so there's ideas for the school sites to consider going forward about how to make that drop-off as smooth as possible. And then finally, there are policy and program recommendations in the plan as well for actions that the district and the school sites can consider. Things like hosting a walk and bike to school day, where maybe you're giving out snacks to students who are walking and biking, trying to make a fun event out of it. And there are lots of partnership opportunities with TAMC, with the health department, to think about those types of events and programs in the future. Next slide. So overall, this plan is really meant to be a tool as you are thinking about school safety around your campuses, as the city is thinking about future projects. It's a way for decision makers to help prioritize between the many different needs that you have in front of you. And when we look at city projects, our hope is that those projects can start to be implemented as they do their regular road maintenance. So that's a way for the city to implement these projects in a way that's quicker and cheaper, as well as applying for grant funding for those bigger and larger scale projects. Next slide. So that concludes my presentation. I have a hard copy of the plan for you guys. And you can also read the full plan on our website, saferoutesmonterey.org/programs/evaluation. I know that's very long, so there's also a bit.ly link here. And we have the full plan in English and then the recommendations chapters in Spanish as well. So welcome any questions. And before I wrap up, also want to appreciate the district and all of the principals for their partnership on this plan over the last 3 years. They really have been tremendous partners and we could not have done it without them.
So a question for me, just real quick. You had mentioned about curb extensions in certain areas. And now with the new law, though, that came into effect, the AB 413, I believe it is. So is that something that's kind of scratched out of the list, since that would actually take up more space now with the 15 and 20 feet you have to consider?
Great question. Curb extensions can help implement that new law. So the new law requires that drivers park 20 feet back from an intersection, and that's everywhere in California. And the goal there is to not have cars parked right up to the crosswalk, right up to the intersection, so that it's hard for pedestrians to see around parked cars, and it's harder for drivers to see around the corner. And a curb extension is an extension of the sidewalk at the corner. So similar to what the city has done on Broadway. And it actually brings the sidewalk out to the level of the parked car. So it physically prevents cars from parking right up to the intersection. So one option for the city to implement the new law is to stripe red curb at corners. But another more permanent and more effective way to implement the new law is to install a curb extension that physically prevents drivers from parking right up to the intersection.
Okay. My next one is in that the survey that you had passed out that I know a lot of parents didn't do, there was around, I think, if I read it quickly, it was around 21% of those who were not so convinced by it. Did you all, do you know the most common concerns that they brought up in regards to this?
Great question. It has been a while since I looked at those survey responses. We do tend to get feedback about the aesthetics of the pop-up. Sometimes people are looking for something that looks more permanent, and that pilot project did include curb extensions that we do as best we can if we're going to install it for a month, but they're formed with traffic tape and plastic posts. And we do sometimes get feedback that can look a little messy, that people would prefer something more aesthetically pleasing. So I don't think that that's a complete answer, but I'm also happy to follow up with you. And the survey responses are included in the appendix of the report, so you can read the comments that people had about that pilot project.
And my last one in regards to where you had mentioned that, they're exploring changes to drop-off processes when it comes to that? Each site got their recommendations for these changes in regards to drop-offs?
In some cases, we didn't have all the answers, especially for Del Rey Elementary. That is a complicated situation. There's a lot of traffic. It seemed like there were challenges with the buses entering and exiting the school parking lot. The recommendation there was to study it further. So not that we had all the answers right then. We had some ideas for them to explore, but city staff was not ready to commit to any recommendations at that point. They really wanted to look into it more closely. For the Arts Magnet School, we felt that what they were doing was working pretty well. And to continue with the drop-off lane, though extending it a little bit longer because sometimes the traffic backs up to Russ Street and there's not enough space for drivers waiting for that queue. And for Collins Street, we explored a lot of different options with school staff, talked about park and walk programs, talked about utilizing the alley for drop-off, and really that drop-off lane that we installed during the pilot was kind of the one solution that we came up with as a possibility. So that is where, that was really the one thing that we got support from school staff for and some support from the public. But then for Del Rey, yeah, more work to be done there.
Okay, that was it for me. Thank you.
I have a quick question for Mr. Jones. How did that lane work?
We loved it. In fact, we are approximating it still. We have purchased stand-up cones and they're put out every morning and taken down. So it takes effort, but it definitely helps the flow of things. So we've been keeping that up the best that we can. We'd love to see those extensions and the cones, the situation set up more permanently. But yeah, we're trying to keep that going because it's been really good at keeping the flow going.
Yeah, because that intersection gets a little bit crazy when drop off, that they would just pull up, the kid would run right across the street.
There's still issues to be worked out. Some of the things aren't really within our purview, but we're encouraging parents to not cross the street in the middle of the street and things like that, because there are some additional safety concerns because of the extra traffic and then people crossing and it holds up the traffic. There's a lot of little things here and there, but yeah, the lane was an improvement and we are trying our best to keep it going.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Audience? Thank you.
Okay, I'll hand this off.
Thank you, Amelia.
Okay, we will now move on to our information item B, CSB Board Policy Updates, first review.
So you have your first reading of another set of policies that will be brought back to you for action next month. And again, as you scroll through, you will see that the majority of them are due to new legislation.
Any questions or comments? Having none, we'll go ahead and move on to communication from board members. Is there anything that anyone would like to communicate?
No, I would just like to thank everybody for all your guys' dedication and hard work. It's really showing off. I only got to see San Lucia and Shalom Peaks today. Seeing Shalom Peaks up here was great. A lot of those kids, some of them I can't recognize their face because they grew up already. So, but I mean, it's great seeing all the positive things that are going around the school. And I think that's where we need to focus more on the positive rather than the negative. I was also able to join the 2 meetings that we had with Yonder Pouch and seeing some parents, with concerns about safety. But after you gave your explanation, it was great. They were happy and they went forward with it. And so it was nice. I know my niece is like, because I drop her off on Tuesday, so she's already with her phone in her pouch and ready to go. So I'm eager to see moving forward how everything works out. But thank you guys, all of you guys, all the administrators for all your support within our district. Thank you guys.
Any other communication from the board? No? Okay, it brings us down to our advanced planning. Review of board planning calendar. Our February 5th date is set for a board study session, and our regular February meeting is on the 19th. With that, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us tonight, and I'll now entertain a motion for adjournment.
I motion we adjourn.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. You guys have a good night.